Hey everyone, it's Talking Race Walking here. I want to do a very quick video. I'm going to do this kind of a series of videos. I'm hoping to actually get some different people on it so we can talk about different topics as well. And I'm going to stand back so my head's not cut off. I want these to be fairly simple videos, but I want to talk about some important topics. And one of them is, what should race walking be? And maybe that's a simple one for you. You like race walking how it is now, you don't see any problems, that type of thing. What I want to talk about is what I think race walking should be, based on my opinion and my experience. Been a runner for a long time, and then I found race walking. What do I think race walking should be? I'm not going to make this an hour-long video, so let's get down to it. Definition, what should race walking be? Just that, race walking. I think it's evolved from pedestrianism, going back to like the mid-1800s or a bit before, depending on who you talk to. But basically the idea of walking as fast as you can. Okay, so basically that simple definition of racing walking. You're doing a walk race. Okay, you're walking as fast as you can for a certain distance or a certain amount of time. And that can be, as far as I'm concerned, any type of walking as well. So we've got the definition. What is it? It's walking in a competitive form. I think the definition as well starts to, what we have to talk about, of course, what we have to talk about is then, therefore, is the rules. What is walking? Pedestrianism had the same problem, going from having competitions where people were walking as fast as they could, for days or hours or across the United States. And then as it got more competitive, what they had to figure out was, where does walking sort of end and where does running begin? And if you're out there and, I think most of us who walk and run know the difference. You can feel it. You know when you start running instead of walking. There is a kind of a gray area where people will shuffle when they run. So that's where you're kind of like, are they running or are they walking? Well, for the most part, most of us kind of know it intuitively. We know when we're walking and we know when we're trying to run. When it becomes difficult is defining it. I recently worked with a group of, these were Olympians and people who had years in the sport and experts and biomechanic experience. And it was still difficult to define and come up with a definition of sort of what walking was. A lot of it came down to really the one thing that sort of separated walking from running was having that one foot on the ground at all times. And not the straight leg that you see in race walking. That's not walking. The straight leg in race walking is not walking. It's something we do when we're race walking because it allows us to walk faster, but it's not a natural walk. So what does this all mean? So what am I saying? I'm saying that I think the definition of walking should really be simplified so that it is going back to sort of the main aspect of walking, where you're maintaining contact with the ground at all times. One foot's on the ground, one comes off, the other one hits the ground, then you lift up the other one. Might this include people who shuffle along, who are barely able to run, but it's very, very slow shuffle? Perhaps. We can figure out that when it comes, that most runners are going to want to be identified as runners and not as walkers. And the shufflers aren't usually very fast either. So I think there's a certain sort of rules we can come up with to eliminate the slow runner from a walker category. But to keep things simple, I think we need to go back to having the one foot on the ground at all times. It's walking. And then you allow people to choose whatever method they're able to do or that works for them to walk as fast as possible. So you're going to have walkers that are more casual walkers, and they're just walking as quickly as they can, okay? They're not power walking, they're not race walking. And then you're going to have race walkers who are still maintaining one foot on the ground and are walking as fast as they can. They're not quite race walking. The hip movement, they haven't quite, it's a little bit different. They're not straightening a leg out to get that leverage to go even faster. And then to the extreme, you get race walkers who will straighten that leg out. Do they have to get it perfectly straight? As far as I'm concerned, no. They have to get that leg straighter to give that ability. And as long as they're not coming off the ground and hopping, or people aren't Groucho Marx kind of walking where it's this exaggerated sort of 90-degree leg that comes out front and are scooting along, which I don't think is a major problem anyways, because I don't think you can do it for that long, then we should be able to have competitions where the main definition is you're keeping one foot on the ground at all times, you're walking as quickly as you can in whatever form works for you, and we have technology that's coming out that will be able to measure how much you're coming off the ground. Why does that matter? Well, if you're a casual walker, it doesn't make much difference. If you're a power walker or a race walker who's not lifting, isn't really going along at a huge pace, it's not as much of an issue either. Where it comes into play is those that are pushing the limit. You often see that running style now at the Olympics or at the elite level, where people are actually all lifting. There's almost no one that's not coming off the ground. That's just the reality. The current rule states that it's the eye of a human judge that judges whether they can see the person coming off the ground. And if they can't see the person coming off the ground, then they can't deem that they're losing contact or lifting or breaking any rule. As I've tried to explain to many people, the fault isn't necessarily in the athletes. The athletes are working within the current set of rules and the technology which we're using, which is the human eye. So the rules dictates that the human eye has to detect it. Well, the human eye is only capable of so much. So standing at the side of a race, watching a huge group of runners go by, race walkers go by, and seeing them from a distance, and seeing elites go with a huge, with a really fast cadence, the human eye is only able to pick up so much. And that's in a crowd as well. They still have to figure out, and see which person's doing it. The color of the shoes can affect things. The lighting can affect things. A whole bunch. The experience of the judge can be a factor. The eyesight of the judge can be a factor as well. There's a whole bunch of things. So it's not a reliable way of judging lifting or loss of contact in a race walk event. It's not that they're not trying. It's not that some of the judges aren't pretty good at it, but they're also not everywhere on the course. So there is technology coming out. There's a race walk chip, it's called. There is a group that's working on that. It will be able to measure with a very small margin of error. And that's a margin of error for the technology, but also it should be able to sort of give a small margin of error as well for human error overall, because going at a fast pace, perhaps someone comes over a bump or does it, comes off the ground a little bit once. That's fine. It's overall, you want to maintain the foot on the ground. So I think this technology will be able to sort of even the playing field, be reliable, be trustworthy, and fair for all competitors. So if we put that into the mix and we said, okay, you hold a race walking event, you allow any walker to come out. It doesn't matter if you're not a race walker. Walk. And then you get power walk. We'll include them too. And the guys and gals at the front are going to be choosing race walking because it's still technically the fastest way, using the definition of having one foot on the ground, to walk as fast as you can. So what does this do? It's going to eliminate human judging, which despite our best efforts and despite experienced judges and everything else, is still not doing what it should. And apologies to the race walk judges out there. I know some that tried their best, but they can't. The system doesn't work. Okay, so that's it. Regardless of anything else, the human eye is going to create errors. Judges can't be everywhere on the course, and every judge is not the same. So I think the technology needs to come. So once we do that, you've got an event with technology that you can hold anywhere. You don't have to hold it on a 1 or 2 kilometer course. You could potentially make it part of a running event. You could do it anywhere. And you could include all forms of walking in there. Maybe you even have subcategories, casual, power walking, and race walking. That's fine, whatever you want to do. But it allows more people to participate in the sport. It gets more people out. So we've talked about the definition of walking. We change it to sort of having 1 foot on the ground at all times. We make it more inclusive in terms of allowing all forms of walking. We can still call it race walking because that is what you're doing. You are racing while walking. We eliminate the judging, not because judges are bad, but just because it doesn't work. It really just doesn't work. If it's obvious, yes, and perhaps on a track, but it's problematic. It always has been. We then look at courses. If we have the technology and we make these changes, you've got a variety of courses. You don't have to hold it off in a weird little spot that nobody's going to see. You don't have to have a special, super special course for race walking. It can be anywhere. You could do the Boston Marathon. You could race walk the Boston Marathon. And if you had the chip, you could do it. Or you could qualify. An elite race walker like Evan Dunphy, who actually has a qualifying time, he could go to the Boston Marathon, and perhaps he could even set a Boston Marathon race walk record if he had a chip to prove that he wasn't coming off the ground. So another kind of, down another rabbit hole I won't go down, but that's another cool possibility. With all this as well, I think it also opens up the ability to do different distances. I like the fact that we have moved to a half marathon and a marathon distance. Now, I know there's people that really like the 50K. So did I. I loved it. I think that is cool. I don't think we necessarily have to get rid of it. But I think the sport is at a point where being more relevant and having distances that are easier for others to relate to, especially runners, because there's a lot of runners in the world right now, it makes it more relatable. And it fits in sort of with the rest of the athletics and track and field world in terms of having distances that kind of fit within. Do you know what I mean? There's a half marathon distance, there's a marathon distance. And then 5K, 10K, that kind of stuff, that works. And I think we should still have the other distances that can be competed. But a half marathon on marathon distance isn't bad for the Olympics, I think, to try and solidify our place there. And if we go back to everything else I was talking about, if we open it up and make it simpler, I think we will get more walkers out. And we get more people walking. More people see walking as a sport. Kids start to see walking as a sport because now it's mainly just something your grandparents do, or you'll go from one place to the other, but they don't see it as a sport or something you can push yourself or walk fast. They don't see it. There usually aren't walking events. At running events, they have a walk option. And it's usually the people going for a stroller who have a stroller and are taking their kids out. It's not a competitive category. So we have some of that. And if more people walk fast or competitively, then including race walking as an event in school athletics will be more supported. More people will see walking as a sport. More people will support it. More people will be familiar with it. Kids will be open to it. And it will be less of a battle. And overall, walking will get more support. It won't be seen, especially the sport aspect, it won't be seen as something you do only when you're injured or you can't run anymore. Or something that you take up as a master's athlete because, you get aches and pains and maybe I'll try it now after I've tried everything else. Masters athletics are amazing. They are a core of a lot of countries, especially in North America. So they make up the core, at least in the United States and Canada. It's almost the core of the race walking community, our masters. It's a little bit different in Europe. We see more race walkers, but here it's the masters. And that's great. I'm a master. but we're not inspiring a lot of young folks. They don't see 60 and 70-year-olds and go, wow, I want to do that. It's not happening. It's the Evan Dumfries, it's the Olivia Lundmans, it's the, other elites they see out there that are inspiring them to do it. They want to be cool. They want to be fast. They want to look young. They want to go to the Olympics, that type of stuff. So I think race walking should be simplified. I think we go back to 1 foot on the ground at all times. We open it up to all walkers. We create events where we get more people out. We change it so we don't have to do special courses. It's more inclusive. It's more open. It's more visible. And we create an environment where walking gets more support and more people see it as a support, as a sport. And I think that's where we need to go. And we bring in and we welcome the power walkers and the Nordic walkers and just the casual walkers. So that's my 2 cents. It may not be every. I'd love to hear your opinions. So send me a comment, send me a message, whatever it is. I'd love to hear what you think about this. What is the future, and what do you think race walking should be? Happy walking, and I'll see you out there.